The agenda for today, the first thing is cleaning the house. So this will be having a look at some of the things that people do in SEO that are kind of overhyped or redundant now, and trying to make suggestions about where businesses should focus their attention on. The second part is keeping the big picture in mind. So again, this is about understanding how other marketing tactics affect SEO and some things that I hope you will find surprising as well. And the final thing is looking at where SEO is going. So looking at the kind of general trends, the pros and cons of where it's going in the future. So, cleaning the house. So, this happens quite a lot. There are a lot of businesses that essentially do this, which is keyword stuffing. They write blog post after blog post after blog post, and they put loads of keywords in it, and they think that's kind of just doing SEO, right? So a lot of people say, oh, SEO is just about putting loads of keywords in blog posts, right? And just kind of getting things out there. But with most things, it is quality over quantity. Don't just blog for the sake of blogging or write articles for the sake of writing articles. You don't have to be so rigid with it, and it doesn't make as much difference to search engine results as people think it does. 10 years ago, it really did matter, because 10 years ago, not as many people were doing it. But nowadays, every business has a blog, every business is writing about stuff, and it just adds to the noise. So to rise above that noise, you have to produce good quality stuff. So that's, where you start to write about articles written by experts. You could bring in, other speakers from other organizations, key people in industry, for example, and that's where content starts to become more traditional stuff like white papers and research and things like that. So you have to think a bit differently. You can't just fill stuff with keywords. Having keywords in is important, but the keywords are not the goal here. You have to produce good quality content and then have those keywords just smattered in throughout it. So the second thing is advertorial. So advertorial is basically paid for articles. You have to be really, really careful with this. As is often the case in marketing, the US dog wags the British tail. So because in America it's not really illegal to have sponsored posts and native advertising, as they call it over there, people think that must be the same case in the UK. That's not actually true. It's actually quite a grey area, and you have to be really careful with it. So BuzzFeed, they fell foul of the regulators of the ASA, which is the Advertising Standards Agency, because of paid-for content. So it relied on the practices of its US arm as a guide to how it labelled advertorials. This is an interesting admission from the publication, as it will effectively lead to different advertorial standards depending on whether the ad is placed on BuzzFeed UK or the main US version. And this is what the ASA said, which was, we acknowledge the inclusion of the label brand publisher near the top of the web page next to the dial-on name and logo, but we considered it was not particularly prominent, and the terminology did not, either in of itself or in conjunction with other page elements, adequately convey the commercial nature of the content to consumers. So these are those kind of articles you see that say top 10 products, and at number 1 is the product, and there's a little bit of text at the top that says sponsored by the number 1 product on that list. And that's considered to be deceptive advertising in the UK. So don't do things like that. If you're you can pay for advertorial, it's fine, but you have to make sure that you're not trying to deceive customers, because that's where the fines and the problems start to begin. So Google also doesn't like this, obviously because it is a bit of a legal grey area. They said that buying or selling links and not disclosing the fact is against Google's quality guidelines, because that would deceive both human visitors and search engine algorithms. When there is payment involved, website owners or webmasters should make sure that links don't pass PageRank, thus making the playing field more even, but also properly disclose the commercial transaction to people. So some people might say, well, I'm happy to pay a fine. I'm happy to pay this, to risk it. But the risk is also that Google won't like it either. So it's not even going to improve your SEO, even if you think you can get away with it. So kill advertorial. Try not to do it. It's not an easy thing to do, so just don't do it. So the rest of a bad bunch, links everywhere. So this is another thing you hear in SEO, which is SEO is all about links. It's just about link building. And you hear that phrase a lot. It's about link building. But what that does is it creates kind of a focus on the quantity, again, the quantity of links as opposed to the quality of links. Algorithms are getting smarter and smarter as the years go by, and what they're supposed to do is mimic human judgment signals. They're not supposed to just go, oh, well, this site has more links, therefore it's obviously a better site. That's why 10 years ago you used to see blogs, for example, or Facebook or whatever, you'd see all these links in comments. You see random links, and that was called link stuffing, which is where people would pay for links, and then these dodgy characters would go out and they'd stuff all these links in blogs, and it worked for a short time until Google caught up on it and said, okay, well, people are obviously trying to game the algorithm and abuse it. So it's not only about links, it is about the quality of those links. So a good example of a good quality link is getting a link from, let's say, The Guardian or BBC News or The Independent. And the reason for that is because these are websites with high domain authority, which is essentially Google says these are trusted domains, they have high traffic volume, they're legitimate websites, so being linked to those websites is an indication of the fact that you're probably legitimate too, which is then passed on to you as a kind of a bonus, and that is how you will improve your SEO over time. So directory submissions, this is another common thing. Lots of companies still do this, so they'll have their website, it's just finished, great, what do we do with it now? And some people say, if you just Google on, SEO, simple tricks, and one of them comes up will be something like directory submissions, which is just essentially getting your website and then just submitting it to like freeindex.com and all these other random sites. And you can do that, but it's kind of pointless because users don't really use those sites anymore. People don't tend to go on directories anymore, they'll just use Google instead. So it kind of negates the purpose of that. Third one, again, paid links, so advertorials, paid links, but also sites like Fiverr, for example, you can go on there and search for paid links, and you see these accounts offering high-quality links for 30 quid, and loads of people think, oh, that's a bargain, that's a good deal, I'm going to pay for that. But it's a really bad thing, because all it is a scam. It's just trying to get money from you. So don't buy links. And the last one is over-blogging. So this is where businesses get into a habit of blogging or putting out articles just through force of habit. So they go, oh, we've got to have a blog post out this week. We have to get one. So I don't know, let's just write about anything, just get something out there. The problem with doing that is you end up with really generic stuff that doesn't actually create any value to your potential customers, and it doesn't even give you any ranking boost because it's just a random web page that will have maybe 13 visitors. Google's smart enough to look at that and say, well, that's clearly just junk. That's clearly just something they've created just for the sake of creating it. And they've got 100 of these pages that are really similar. Top 10 this, top 10 that, top 10 this. So get out of the habit of creating quantity and get into the habit of creating quality. So moving on to keeping the big picture in mind. So search engine optimization. There's several areas of SEO. So the main one is technical SEO. You have to get the basics right first. So for example, that would be making sure your website is actually indexed on Google, and any good web developer will do that for you anyway. So that's about making sure that Google reads your website, they can actually have a look at the pages and understands what those pages are and how they're connected throughout your website so that Google can rank those accordingly. There is on-page SEO, which is all about content optimization. So really that's just jargon for making sure your website actually serves the needs of your potential customers. Making sure the copy's there, making sure the description of the services is accurate and all of those things. But it's about making a good website, essentially, that actually sells what you do. And then off-page SEO, which is essentially website promotion. And we all know that SEO in itself is not really a goal. Having good SEO is a byproduct of having a good business and good marketing. So I'm going to run through some of these. So on-page SEO, there are a variety of tools you can use. I'm going to go through Answerthepublic later, which is a really cool tool. But also to improve content optimization, you can do research, and I mean old school research. So for example, actually talking to customers and asking them why they bought from your business. Use those insights to inform how you write and how you actually communicate to your customers. Some businesses make assumptions about why customers buy from them. So if you can talk to actual customers, you can say, actually, the key thing for them has been this. So you can highlight that and keep that as a focus on your website so it's clear. And then the final thing is Hotjar. Some of you may know what Hotjar is. If you don't, again, I'm going to run through that. So technical SEO, there's some cool little tools for that. The Screaming Frog and GT Metrics. Screaming Frog is just an app that you put your website in and it reads all your URLs and tells you if there's any problems, essentially. So if the descriptions are too long, if you're missing H1 tags or H2 tags and meta description and meta tags. GT Metrics is a website speed tester. It's my favorite one because it actually offers you a lot of recommendations, which I think is great. A lot of them don't do that. They just say, your speed is an A grade in speed, which is, okay, that's helpful, but how can I improve it? But GT Metrics is really good because it actually gives you quite a bit of detail about things you need to improve. And off-page SEO, again, that's things like ads. It's Google Ads, it's PR, it's other things that are outside of your website. So, PR as SEO. As SEO is evolving and as marketing is evolving, everything is becoming more integrated. Everything is multiplicative. It all fits together in a marketing mix. There was a notion 10 years ago that digital was going to eat marketing. That's not true. Marketing was always going to eat digital. Most radio now is digital. Most TV now is digital. The lines are blurred, which means you have to be aware of that and recognize how other tactics influence other parts of marketing and other parts of your business. So, for example, PR is really helpful for building SEO because you can get high-quality links and good editorial and stories and articles in high-quality websites. That's just a great way to help push up your rankings and to generate consumer interest because of the vast reach that it delivers. And this is a great evidence example. So this is TV as SEO. So these are when ads are running, and as you can see, there are spikes in search traffic because, of course, if people see an ad on TV or on radio or in the press or wherever, it could even be outdoor, whatever, and they're interested, then they're going to Google your brand. They're going to look for your brand, and they're going to say, oh, okay, I'll check that out. So you get a natural spike when those kind of things run. And if you are consistent with that approach, eventually you're going to have sustained organic traffic because you've created more awareness of your brand. And if more people are aware of your brand, more people will Google your brand or look at your website because they're considering your brand. This is our website. So this is some of our traffic data. So this is the day-to-day. And as you can see there, it doesn't look like it changes very much day to day. It's very easy to get caught in that short-term look at data, especially with digital data, because it is inherently short-term. So don't just get caught up in the week-to-week. Don't look at it and say, oh, our website seems to be down this week. You have to look at it longer term than that. And that's the longer term. So looking at it month to month, our website has improved its organic traffic ratings, and it's on an incline. It's going to keep going up as long as we sustain the activity we're doing. And the reason we're doing that is because in February and March, as an agency, we weren't doing any external comm stuff because we were too busy dealing with client work. It was the new year, we were focusing on internal stuff and kind of organising things and getting some more clients and doing that. But then we really started in March and April and June and now to really make sure we were pushing our business out there. So we had loads of PR going out, we had more digital activity as well. We did the whole lot, and what it's done is it shows that we've had a slow and steady increase incrementally over time. So make sure you do look at the long-term effects of what you do. When you're looking at data, especially anything marketing related, look at the short-term and the long-term because they both tell you different stories. So the reason this is really important is because there are two ways that marketing works. There's something called sales activation, which is just jargon for hard sales messages and rational persuasion of customers. So, for example, that could be a leaflet for your door that offers you a 10% discount off a product. It could be a Google ad. These are quite rational things. These are things for people that are already in market, essentially. These are for people that are already looking for those services and are kind of aware of that company. And then there's brand building activities. So brand building activities are things like this event. This is a brand building activity because you're all here today at this big show of OrderWise and you get to see all their new products, and they're not going to make an immediate return out of it. That's not the goal. The goal is to show that they are great at what they do. and they invite you all along so you can see some of the new stuff they're doing. So brand stuff is about creating a brand. It's about making a business look good, about making it look better. So in terms of comms, that would be things like advertising, that would be TV ads. You know, a great example of that is Lloyd's, for example. When I say black horse on a beach, most people know that that's to do with Lloyd's, and that's the power of brand building, which is these emotional priming messages that get people to consider a brand, and then you activate it using shorter term stuff. So you would have, let's say, a TV ad that was going for 30 seconds that showed that black horse on the beach and how they're great and they're a good bank and they're really trusted. But then you'd also have at the same time Google ads running to say the variety of services that the bank actually offers. So make sure you keep the balance of those two in mind. This is Les Binet. He is the head of effectiveness at Adam and Eve DDB, which is a major advertising company. They're global. He originally was a physicist. He's got a PhD in data science, very intelligent man, and his job is basically just to analyze advertising and marketing campaigns, which sounds really boring. But that's what he does, and the insights he's found have demonstrated what I was just talking about, that there are two ways that marketing works, and online marketing is making traditional marketing better, and vice versa. Because now if you see a billboard in the street and you think that looks cool, you can take your phone out and you can Google it. So you have to keep both things in mind, and all of these things will affect your SEO as well. So moving on to tools. Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog, as I said, is a really cool tool that will help you to actually understand kind of if your car is, that's the analogy I was going to use, if your website is actually up to scratch from a basics point of view. So it's really an MOT for your website. And all of this stuff is really helpful because you can kind of just run it and then export the report and then just send it to your web developers and say, this page is missing H1 tags. Why has this happened? I want to know why these things have happened. I've got broken links here, and it's a really easy way for them to actually look at sometimes quite large sites, especially if they're e-commerce, in a really structured way and say, okay, we can start fixing these little things and getting the basics right first. And if you do it yourself, then it's really useful to use it to improve metadata, titles, and so on and so forth through things like WordPress. So summary of it is it's really helpful because it allows you to see all your web pages and how they're structured, so you get to see if there's 404 errors, make sure that's set up, if there's 301 redirects, if you've had a site rebuild. You can find gaps in metadata and titles and so on, and as I said, it helps you get the basics signed off. This is GTmetrix, which is a speed tester, and as I said, it's really helpful because it gives you a score as well, but it also gives you some tips. So the most common one you can see there is optimizing images, so that's a C, and that's usually the main problem with most websites. It's making sure that the images on it are actually small enough, because bigger images means your website is slower. Slower website means people have to wait longer, and also Google says, well, you're a bit slower than your nearest competitor, so we'll give you a bit of a downgrade and we'll give them a bit of an upgrade. So you can see how fast your site is. It's really important for rankings to have a quick site. And also because of user experience, no one wants to sit there waiting for a website to load. They'll just go back to Google and then click on the next one. It's very important for user experience, again, for that same reason. And GTmetrix also allows you to see areas that need improvement through CMS or web dev. So image optimization, browser caching, and all those kind of technical things. So this tool is called Answerthepublic. This is kind of a research tool, really. So what you do is you can use 5 queries a day, because it's free, and you can just put in a phrase or a word, and you can generate questions. And these questions are what people are actually searching on Google. So it shows you a really broad range of the kind of things people are actually asking. So for example, if you put in marketing, you can see that a lot of people ask, are marketing and advertising the same thing? And that's really helpful to advertising and marketing agencies because they can think, okay, this is obviously a common query. People aren't sure about the difference between the two. So as an agency, how do we position ourselves against that and make sure that we are seen as being different from the other thing? So this can be really, really helpful in actually finding out the kind of questions that consumers are asking around products or services. And it's based on Google searches, and it'll give you plenty of ideas. So you can see what people search for around topics, and then you can answer those common questions through blog posts, articles, PR, all sorts of things, expert comments, and so on. And Google Analytics, again, make sure you're looking at the short term and the long term. Don't just focus on one or the other, look at both. And Google does change algorithms as well. So sometimes if you see weird things happen with your web traffic, always make sure you actually Google if there have been any algorithm updates, because sometimes that can be the culprit. A lot of people can look at websites, something goes wrong, they think, oh no, we must have done something to our website, and they go into right panic, when actually the reality is Google's changed something. As they do, they rarely announce it, and there's not much you can actually do about it until you've read kind of the work that they put out about it and how you can adapt to those changes. So Google Analytics, the reason I put this one in here is because a lot of people I've worked with haven't even had that set up on their websites, which is kind of a basic. But I want to make sure that people do have it because it is really beneficial. And the last tool is Hotjar. So Hotjar is kind of the qualitative version of Google Analytics. It looks at actual user interactions on a website. So it creates heat maps based on where people are clicking. This is really, really helpful for anyone considering redesigning or rebuilding their website, because it allows you to see where users are actually clicking and where they're not clicking. You might actually find that there are pages where no one goes. And if no one's going to them, then you could probably scrap those pages or rejig them. And it's anonymized as well. So you don't need to worry about GDPR or anything like that, because it's just based on anonymized click data. And also another thing that's really cool is it can record visitors actually on your site. So you can get little videos of how people interact with the page, which is really helpful. So you can see where people are reading, where people are stopping. And it's really good because it's complementary to Google Analytics, because you can actually see how people use your website. So it's not just numbers data, it's user data, user experience data. So the final part is, where is SEO going? So the tough stuff is that user growth on Google and on the internet in general is slowing down. Most people now are connected to the internet. And what this means for Google is that they're not making as much money as they used to make. And then what that means is they want to squeeze everyone else, and they want to keep deriving revenue from existing users. So the reason they're doing that is to make more money for themselves, so they will compete with publishers, cannibalize clicks, limit organic reach, and make channels pay to play. So for example, this is why most businesses now use Google Ads, because it's kind of, you have to kind of do that now. In regards to competing with publishers, this is things where you, let's say, search for a story, and you'll get a snippet of that story, and you'll read it in the search engine results page rather than clicking through the article to the actual website. So that website isn't getting the clicks that it would have got a couple of years ago. And 49% of Google searches as a result of that are no-click searches. This is where people just search for something, and then again they'll see it in the search results. Another myth is that people say 65% of web searches happen on Google. It's not true. It's basically a monopoly now. It's around 90%, if not more. But the good thing is, this probably will change. The law is always slow to catch up on this kind of stuff, and when things become a monopoly, that starts to cause problems for everyone else. So hopefully there will be some legislative changes to actually make sure that Google isn't cannibalizing everything, and that Google isn't just using everyone else as essentially a data bank to provide information and keep users on Google longer than the actual sites they should be looking at. But the good stuff is that people are able to create ads now that are more specific and more intent-based, rather than creating really generic Google ads. So, for example, just having a brand term like, this is our company, buy from us now. It's actually far better if you can create advertising that is more specific to individual user needs. So, for example, if you sell CMS and you sell loads of different things, then you'd want to have an ad that's really specific to that. And you want to do your user research and customer research to make sure that you actually understand what the needs are, and then create variants of those ads to make sure that you're actually answering those specific queries. So, for example, one client I was looking at, they sell all kinds of machinery, and a lot of the search terms people were using were about a specific laser that's in these trenching devices, and I didn't know about this, but apparently to a lot of people it's really important. So what you can do with that is take that information and then use that in a Google ad. So it's really specific. So when people search for that, they can actually see that and go, oh, okay, they clearly have that. That's good. I'll click through to them. It just makes it easier for them. The other good thing is that it's not a gamble anymore. SEO kind of was a bit of a game. A couple of years ago, it was like, oh, if we do these tricks, we'll be up at the top. In 5 weeks, we'll be #1. And it was easier to do that because it was easier to abuse and game the system to get to that point. But now it's easier if you're a legitimate business. You don't have to worry about these annoying competitors that will essentially break the rules to beat other people's rankings. And the main reason for that is because algorithms have got more intelligent. Algorithms are supposed to mimic human judgment, and that's only a good thing.